Hey, fiction fans! Welcome back to Gaga's Fiction. Today, we're diving into the thrilling world of Naruto x Azula Part 2. If you thought Part 1 was exciting, you're in for a wild ride. So, hit that subscribe button and let's jump right in. He felt strangely light, and the water surrounding him was wetting him, even though this was contradictory because, to begin with, there was no air where he was, no water. Was he even standing on the ground? Questions like these were one of the things he hated the most about this place, aside from one other thing he detested about it. He had to walk to find the one he came to seek. Naruto got up to realize he was in his mental space, or as Uro-sanin called it. With water reaching up to his ankles, he began to walk. Looking around, he saw the pipes in this sewer-like place leading into the darkest depths of the area. Here we go. Taking a deep breath, he could only walk into the darkness. Minutes passed, and Uzumaki continued to walk. What seemed like hours to him were only minutes. But in the end, he reached his destination, a cage of titanic dimensions with a lock covered by a seal. Walking slowly, the pre-adolescent approached until he was only a few meters away from the cage. He saw a claw protruding between the bars, the tip of the claw barely touching Naruto's forehead, making him swallow hard and regain his composure with a slight tremor. "I knew you would come sooner or later, although I must admit I thought you'd take longer," were the dark words of the giant being hidden in the shadows. Slowly, it retracted its claw from the boy's face. "You must be desperate." A wide, toothy smile formed in the darkness as the silhouette gradually revealed itself to be the Kyuubi, the nine-tailed beast, rising majestically. "I don't have time to waste on your games. I've come to ask you some questions, you damn fox." Naruto frowned, looking annoyed at the giant fox, who only smirked in mockery. "Why should I answer a miserable human's questions?" The kitsune lost its smile, narrowing its eyes dangerously, while all its tails moved threateningly behind it. "Because this affects both of us," was the ninja's response, who dared to look the great-tailed beast in the eye. He continued, "I don't remember how, but now we're in a kind of different world, and I know all that garbage," the fox growled, showing boredom towards the surprised Jinchuriki. "I'm inside you, so I know everything you know, as I've endured being locked up since you were born. And I know everything I need to know." It spoke, giving very little importance to this piece of information, which left the ninja very surprised. "Do you know everything?" Naruto asked with suspicion, only to receive a mocking smile from the bijou. "Your first time pleasuring yourself was a few months ago after you and that pervert searched for someone to take on the role of Hokage, all while thinking about that Senju's big breasts." This response left Naruto frozen, his face turning bright red with embarrassment, which increased when he heard the loud laughter of that damn fox. "Hey! That's private." Naruto's protests were ignored by the bijou, who stopped laughing after a few minutes. "Setting that aside, you have to help me get back home," he shouted again, now with anger, seeing that his tenant was indifferent to his situation or whereabouts. "No," the kitsune replied, rising imposingly behind the bars, smiling arrogantly. "You don't understand, do you? We're in a place where people have no chakra, where they can only splash water, move pitiful rocks, blow wind, and shoot small fire sparks. You know what I see?" Lowering its head, it focused its big red eye directly on its Jinchuriki. Without giving a response, Naruto could only look into that eye, which emanated hatred and anger. "Peace," a dangerous smile formed on the fox's face as it lay down on the ground, propping itself up on its front paws. "Finally, a world without annoying shinobi hunting me, no more Senjus, no more bothersome seals, no more being a prisoner, no more Uchihas." It shouted the last part with joy while looking at the boy with amusement. "Finally, a world where I can have peace from you miserable humans, and if the people of this world also come after me, I won't hesitate to crush anyone who dares to bother me." Saying that, it closed its eyes for a moment, only to open them again. "If the seal were weak enough, I'd kill you myself to get out, even if it meant I'd die in the process. But seeing how things are out there, I won't be the one to bring death upon you." "What are you trying to say?" Naruto asked, feeling his hopes of returning home slowly fading. "You're in the middle of a war, and in my experience, kids like you won't survive," it snorted, causing a gust of wind that nearly knocked its jailer over. "Forget about Konoha, now you're in an unknown world where a 100-year war rages, as that old man who saved your hide mentioned. I've lived for centuries watching humans tear each other apart, and now you're in the middle of this war, like many others, with cities razed, burned to the ground, leaving nothing but a sea of corpses everywhere." Lowering its gaze, it met the uncertain gaze of the shinobi, who, for the first time, felt unsure about what to do. "What can I do?" Setting aside his pride, Naruto had to seek help from the fox who, as he had heard, had lived for hundreds of years, witnessing war after war. Even if he had to swallow his pride, he needed all the help he could get. "Well, you could always be the pet of that crazy lightning lady," the fox mocked, receiving an annoyed look from Uzumaki, who crossed his arms. "Screw you." "Ugh, how delicate," the nine-tailed fox huffed, sinking into the water in its prison. Now, it just had to wait for the boy to get himself killed out there and regenerate somewhere in this world after a few years. It would take time, but it was sure it would eventually achieve its goal of living a life far away from annoying humans. While the bijou was lost in its thoughts, Naruto kept his head down, seeing that the bijou was unwilling to help. Clenching his fists in frustration, he could only raise his head. "You know, you damn fox. I don't need your help. I'll find a way back home myself, no matter what. I won't give up, no matter what. Remember, Uzumaki Naruto never gives up." He shouted with a determined look and then turned and ran into the darkness. Opening one of its eyes, the tailed beast with tail smiled mockingly. That kid had courage, but it wouldn't help him in the place he was in. In war, the brave fools at the front lines were always the first to fall. It always happened. Closing its eyes, it could only sleep and hope that everything would go as planned. "Hey!" Opening its eyes again, the kitsune found Naruto standing in front of the cage. With an awkward smile, he scratched the back of his neck while looking in random directions. "Now what?" the fox asked lazily, looking at its jailer, who squirmed uncomfortably where he was. "I don't know how to get out of here." With a blank look, the fox used its tails as a barrier to avoid looking at the kid who sat on the ground, waiting to wake up. "Idiot," the Kyuubi said, closing its eyes to sleep and ignoring the ninja who remained in silence, pondering what to do while waiting for his body to awaken. For Naruto, it felt like hours as he waited to regain consciousness. When he started to wake up, he heard the sound of footsteps. Opening his eyes slowly, he found himself still in the cave. However, now that he was more awake, he realized that something was missing. Oh, crap. He touched his neck and realized that the necklace his grandmother Tsunade had given him had disappeared. He quickly got up and ran out of the cave to see the sun rising on the horizon. How had someone managed to steal from him while he was unconscious? This was a huge oversight on his part. Now, how the heck was he going to find the thief? He sighed and sat at the entrance of the cave. If you have to find someone, remember that we all leave a trail. It's just a matter of finding it. Strangely, Kiba's words from their childhood came to his mind. He had said that his mother taught him the basics of tracking and had only bragged to the others. Thinking back, he looked at the cave's rocky ground and frowned, noticing that it prevented any footprints. Walking away from the cave, he reached a point where the ground was earth. Eureka! The blonde smiled when he saw small tracks leading into the forest. They were small, like those of a child. Grinning, he began to run at full speed, following the trail. After a few minutes, he arrived at an Earth Kingdom village, which was quite large, unlike the previous ones he had visited. Unfortunately, there were 2 guards at the only entrance, dressed as earthbending masters. But that was no challenge for Uzumaki Naruto. "Have you seen the general's sister?" one of the guards asked his companion, who gave him a bored look. "Yeah. I'd give her a 7, he replied, wearing an even more lecherous smile than the other guard. Before the two could continue their discussion about the general's beautiful sister, they heard someone approaching. It was a boy with strangely golden hair, wearing only pants. What stood out most was that his eyes were covered by a piece of cloth, and he carried a long staff for guidance. The pre-adolescent walked up to the guards, only to strike one of them in the leg with his staff. "Hey, kid, be careful," the earthbending master grumbled, only to be struck on the head with the staff. "Friend, calm down. He's a blind kid," one of the guards scolded the other, taking the pre-adolescent by one arm and guiding him through the entrance. "Just go straight and then turn left. There's a restaurant and a clothing store, maybe they'll give you something," the earthbending master said with sadness as he guided the blonde into the city. "Thanks, kind sir," the blind boy said with gratitude, walking through the streets, away from the guard, who returned to his post, looking somewhat skeptical about what had just happened. "Hey! Do you have my wallet?" one of the earthbending masters asked as he checked his pockets. His companion imitated him. After a few seconds, both guards realized that they had been robbed by a seemingly blind kid. Not a good story to tell their general. Inside the Earth Kingdom city, we find Naruto discarding his staff and removing the blindfold from his eyes. He smiled with joy as he stashed the 2 small money pouches he had acquired. Well, he needed to eat and get some clothes, and stealing a few coins from a couple of guards was something his conscience could handle. Whistling absent-mindedly, He walked through the bustling streets. He couldn't help but notice the stark contrast in social classes. It seemed that there was no middle class, as he only saw people in high society attire with refined clothing or those dressed in old, worn-out garments. That was peculiar. But he paid it little mind and continued on his way, ignoring the curious gazes of some of the city's inhabitants. He had to find the person who took his necklace and get out of this city. Perhaps Azula had already issued orders for all Fire Nation soldiers to capture him. While the shinobi was lost in thought, there was a dark-haired boy with a ponytail, violet eyes, and somewhat pale skin near him. He wore green rags that covered his upper body and part of his legs. The boy had a blanket at his feet with various items he was selling. "Ladies and gentlemen, don't miss the opportunity to buy valuable items I offer at reasonable prices." The boy smiled and handed a piece of fabric to a woman who stopped to look at what he had. "This fabric comes directly from the Water Tribe. They say it's used to sew the most beautiful kimonos you've ever seen." He spoke with a bright smile as he saw the woman showing interest in the fabric. "Oh, really?" The woman examined the fabric with hesitation. It seemed to be of good quality, but if the boy was correct, it could be worth much more than he was asking. "All right, I'll take it." She took out some coins and handed them to the young vendor, who smiled gratefully. "Thank you. But before you go, wouldn't you be interested in something even more valuable?" the young dark-haired boy asked. He pulled a cord necklace from his pocket with a shiny green stone hanging from it. Several merchants and people on the street stopped to admire the brilliant stone, which would be worth a fortune. This belonged to a powerful earthbending master. "It's worth more than a gold mine. But just for you, I'll let it go for only 3 gold coins." "Really?" the woman asked with excitement. She looked at the necklace with longing, but before she could inquire about buying it, a group of Earth Kingdom soldiers arrived. They pushed through the crowd and reached the boy. The boy gulped nervously, collected his blanket and belongings and prepared to escape. However, one of the soldiers grabbed his arm. "We warned you not to sell your trinkets here, kid." One of the earthbending masters roared in anger, squeezing the boy's arm tightly, causing him to gasp in pain and drop his blanket, revealing the necklace. The soldier took the necklace, frowning. "This isn't something cheap. Do you know the price of stealing from nobles?" "Hold the kid. Wait, it wasn't stolen. I found it in the woods." The boy cried out in panic as a earthbender held his hands down and pushed him against the ground. His fear increased as he saw the group's leader slam the ground, making a large rock levitate over the boy's 2 arms. All right. I stole it from a kid with weird hair who was asleep. But I swear he wasn't a noble. He was as poor and dirty as me. I swear." Stealing from a thief is still theft. The earthbending master moved his hands, causing the rock, about 40 centimeters in diameter, to hover dangerously above the boy's hands. Tears streamed down the boy's eyes as he struggled under the soldier's grip, knowing he was about to be severely punished. Unexpectedly, the rock shattered into thousands of pieces before it could descend on the boy. A pre-adolescent boy, dressed in nothing but pants and wielding a kunai, stood with a serious expression. With a serious look, the blonde threw the kunai, which hit the group's captain's right shoulder and caused him to fall backward, screaming in pain from the bladed weapon embedded in his shoulder. "He's armed." The soldier holding the boy jumped up, moved his hands, and created an earth wall, which he pushed toward the newcomer. But with an impressive 4-meter leap, the blonde avoided the attack, landing on the earthbender who had attacked him and delivering a kick that knocked him out. As for the boy, he took a moment to grab some of his earnings from the day before running down an alley. However, before he left, he stopped to listen to a sound, the thud of a sandbag hitting the ground. "Wow." The boy looked on in amazement as the strange kid was surrounded by 6 Earth Kingdom soldiers, who were either knocked out or had broken bones that prevented them from getting up, and the blonde boy didn't even have a scratch. Letting out a sigh, Naruto walked over and crouched down to pick up his necklace from the hands of a soldier. Scanning his surroundings, he noticed that he had inadvertently destroyed an elderly man's vegetable stand. Pulling out a bag of coins from his pocket, he tossed it to the old man. "Sorry about that, old man. This should cover the damages," he said before leaping onto the roof of a nearby 2-story house, running nimbly across the rooftops. After a few minutes, he stopped on top of a tall temple-like structure. "Well, that went well," he thought, smiling as he affectionately stroked his necklace. Although he had retrieved it, he now had the issue of being sought after by earthbending masters. VSSD. The shinobi tilted his head when he heard something. Lowering his gaze, he found the boy who had initially stolen from him in the alley. "Hey, come here," the dark-haired boy said, waiting for the blonde to descend. It didn't take Naruto long to leap off the roof and land in the alley, crossing his arms. "Listen, I know you want to punch me for borrowing something that belongs to you. Stealing something that belongs to me. Naruto grumbled, looking annoyed with the kid. Yeah, stealing. But hey, you were great back there. Are you some kind of warrior or martial arts master? The boy asked excitedly, watching as the blonde rolled his eyes, turned away, and started walking down the alley. It's rude to ignore people. The child shouted after him. Aside from stealing, I need to go, Naruto replied, ignoring the boy. Like I said, you were amazing back there. The boy continued to chatter while walking down the alley, away from the blonde. Naruto reluctantly followed the boy, who seemed persistent. PSST, the shinobi froze when he heard something, realizing that the alley had grown quieter. Turning around, he found the kid who had initially stolen from him. Hey, we haven't introduced ourselves yet. I'm Dororo, the boy said with a smile while the blonde only rolled his eyes in response. If you come with me and listen, I can get you some food, Dororo said vaguely. Naruto continued to follow the boy as they walked through the city's poorest areas. It was a bleak wasteland, families wearing old, torn clothes, run-down houses, and malnourished children, some as young as 5, begging for coins from passers-by. Sir, do you have any coins? A 6-year-old girl approached Naruto. She was dirty and wearing a dusty brown kimono. Naruto looked at the girl and saw a woman in the distance who shared some resemblance with the child. She might be her mother or an older sister. The woman was selling pottery or dishes that didn't look the best. Turning his attention back to the girl, he took out the last money pouch he had stolen from one of the guards and handed it to her. Go home and don't show it to anyone, he said in a hushed voice, worried that someone might harm the girl for the coins she received. Opening the small pouch discreetly, the girl's eyes widened with surprise as she saw at least 50 silver coins. She closed the pouch and looked up with teary eyes. Thank you. Thank you very much. She hugged Naruto's leg for a moment before running back to where her mother or sister was. Did you have money all this time? Naruto's actions had caught Dororo's attention, who had stopped ahead of him. The boy only nodded in response. You should have just bought food, Dororo said. She needed it more, Naruto replied without hesitation. He resumed walking alongside the boy, who just shrugged. It's your money, brother, Dororo said with a carefree attitude. The two continued to walk until they reached a small, run-down house. Home sweet home, Dororo said as he entered the place. Naruto took a look around. There wasn't much inside, just a dresser with a few clothes and a bed where Dororo had been lying before. There was also a separate room with some wooden crates. Furrowing his brow, Naruto felt strangely nostalgic. It reminded him of his old apartment when he was just a 5-year-old with nothing. Hey! We haven't introduced ourselves yet. I'm Dororo, the boy said, waving for Naruto to sit on the floor. Sorry, I'm not in the mood for introductions right now, Naruto replied, sitting down against the wall. Naruto. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, he introduced himself with a serious look, looking at the boy who continued to smile. Do you live alone? He asked, unable to curb his curiosity. No, my older sister lives with me. We've been here since the Earth Kingdom took over the village we used to live in. They claimed it was for military use, but I think it's a lie. Our home wasn't near the Fire Nation's borders, but we had good harvests and herds. Maybe that's why they took our lands. He sighed, losing his smile as he hugged his knees. It happened years ago, and I'd be lying if I said I remembered what my old home looked like. Or my parents. They died when they were attacked by a firebending master. My parents were just cloth and silk merchants who refused to give all the fruits of their labor to the firebenders. At least that's what my sister says. Smiling, he got up, walked around the house, and crouched in a corner, pulling out some boards that were part of the floor. He took out some pieces of stale bread and handed a piece to the shinobi. It's not much. All right. Thanks, he said, taking the piece of bread gratefully. Naruto noticed that the bread was tough and dry, but it was food. He quickly ate it in silence, only able to look at the child who was eating quietly. He and his sister lost everything, not just to the Fire Nation but also to the Earth Kingdom, the country that was supposed to protect them and provide them with a home. Was this the reality of war? Please, I'll ask you to leave. Coming out of his thoughts, Naruto heard a female voice outside the house. Instantly, Dororo got up and ran to the door. When he joined him, he saw 3 people outside the house, 2 dirty-looking men armed with knives and a girl. Leave my sister alone. The young black-haired boy didn't hesitate to stand between the girl and the men, who smiled mockingly at the boy's interference. Dororo, go inside the house, the girl said firmly, taking the little boy and placing him behind her. She appeared as a beautiful young woman with long curly brown hair that reached her lower back, bright brown eyes, and fair skin. She had a slender yet curvy figure and was wearing a red kimono with white petals, which was somewhat torn and stitched in places to hold it together. "Yes, go inside, kid. We need to talk to your lovely sister to see if she'll provide some service tonight," one of the men said with a sinister grin as he forcefully grabbed the girl's arm, causing her to wince in pain. But he let go when another hand squeezed his wrist. Everyone turned to see a furious Naruto, his grip making the man feel like his hand was losing circulation. "Go away," Naruto said, releasing the man's wrist before walking over to stand in front of the two siblings, who silently headed towards the house's door. "You'll pay for this, kid," the injured man yelled, pulling out a knife and attempting to stab the strange-haired boy. However, he only managed to have his arm caught and received a punch in the elbow, which produced a gruesome sound as it went in the opposite direction. "Ah! My arm!" he screamed in pain, clutching his broken arm, falling backward and rolling in agony. "I said leave." With that shout from Uzumaki, the other frightened man took his injured companion and dragged him away. With a sigh, the blonde entered the house, only to find the teenager protecting her younger brother behind her. "We have nothing. But if you go, I'll give you some coins," the girl said, taking a few coins from her kimono and tossing them to Naruto. He couldn't help but feel sorry when he saw the panic and fear in her eyes. Not knowing what to say with a lump in his throat, he turned around. "I'm sorry." As he was about to leave, he heard Dororo's cry as he freed himself from his older sister's grip. "Wait, don't go. Sister, he saved me from the earthbenders and just saved you. He's a good person." The boy cried out, grabbing one of Naruto's arms to prevent him from leaving. "If it wasn't for him, both my arms would have been crushed." Horrified, the girl covered her mouth with one hand. After a few moments, she leaned in. "I'm Mio," she introduced herself, constantly readjusting her clothes to cover herself as much as possible. "I'm Naruto. You don't need to thank me. I just did what was right," the blonde said, still smiling slightly, though feeling somewhat uneasy about the atmosphere that surrounded them. Still, Mio silently observed her guest's condition. He was wearing only those dirty orange pants. Getting up, she walked to the room where there were several boxes, and after a few minutes of searching, she returned to sit in front of the shinobi. "Please accept this," she humbly offered what appeared to be a piece of clothing. Taking it, Uzumaki saw that it was a thin orange coat with long black sleeves. He looked up to see the hopeful eyes of the girl who seemed determined not to take no for an answer to her gift. "Thank you," he accepted the gift and put it on, much to the brunette's delight. "Now, I'll prepare something to eat." Without further ado, the girl got up and went to another room, leaving Naruto and Dororo alone. The young boy approached the pre-adolescent slowly. "Brother, where did you learn those moves?" the excited child asked, catching the attention of the blonde who awkwardly scratched his cheek. "I just improvise. I had to learn to fight from a young age," he replied calmly, but the boy by his side still wanted to know more. "Do you know about the survival tournament?" he asked, only to receive a negative answer from Naruto. Smiling, the black-haired child clapped his hands. "It's a combat arena where you have to survive and win 4 matches. It's something secret and run by Mr. Wow, a man said to be as important as the Emperor of Ba Sing Se. The prize for winning is 10,000 gold coins." "And?" Naruto asked, although he already had an idea of where the boy was going. "Listen, I'll take you there, and you win. We split the reward 50-50, and everyone's happy. What do you think?" he asked excitedly. Perhaps this guy was the ticket to leave this city with his sister and seek a better life. "Dororo, what have I told you about that silly tournament?" Before the shinobi could respond, they were interrupted by Mio, who was carrying a tray with 2 bowls. "But sister, you saw it. He can end up like Hato. That boy tried and died. I warned you not to talk about that tournament again," she spoke sternly, causing the boy to avert his gaze. With a sigh, the brown-haired girl handed a bowl of rice to Dororo and another to the shinobi. "What about you?" Naruto couldn't help but ask as there were only 2 bowls with some rice, seemingly prepared a few hours ago, perhaps leftovers from a previous meal. "I ate something a few hours ago. It's fine. Dororo, please eat everything, and then it's time to sleep. It's getting dark." After saying that, an uncomfortable silence filled the house. Dororo was the first to get up after finishing his meal, wearing a disgruntled expression as he lay down on what seemed to be the only bed in the house. "I'm sorry you had to see that. I just worry about him," the brunette apologized, picking up both empty bowls and placing them aside, leaving the 2 young people facing each other. "I understand," He began slowly, looking away as it seemed Dororo had fallen asleep. Looking back at the girl, he noticed the tired expression on her face, and when he heard her stomach growl, a pang of hunger hit him. You said you'd already eaten. My younger brother, eating is more important. It's not the first time I've gone a few days without eating, but I can earn some money tomorrow. Although you scared off 2 potential customers. The last part confused Naruto, and he saw a bitter smile on the girl's face. Your job is. You don't need to say it. He regretted saying the first comment and tried to change the subject, but the young woman shook her head with a gentle smile on her lips. I'm a companion. Or a prostitute, as many people call it. I'm not proud of what I do, but I'll do it if it means feeding my younger brother. It's something that has to be done, even if it's unpleasant. She took some strands of her hair and tucked them behind her ear. Naruto rarely thought about the situations some people might go through. Now, he felt admiration for Mio, who was willing to do things that few would, all for the sake of providing for her family. This was a new perspective he had overlooked until now. While Naruto was silent, the teenage girl saw her little brother squirming uncomfortably in his bed. Approaching him, she gently stroked his hair. A white flower that bloomed in red sand. The girl slowly began to sing, her soft and beautiful voice instantly calming the boy, who gradually fell back asleep. A little shadow swinging right beneath the sun. A flock of birds is calling. Continuing her comforting singing, she helped her little brother fall asleep again. Smiling, she continued singing while moving away from the child. By all means, be happy. Of course, by all means, be happy. After finishing her song, a comforting silence filled the house. Wow, but the silence didn't last, as the pre-adolescent couldn't hide his surprise at what he had just heard. That was amazing. Thank you. Smiling, the girl blushed slightly at the compliment, causing the blonde to avert his gaze. This only made the brunette smile more as she approached the shinobi again. My mother liked me to sing on the long journeys we used to take in the cart. You'd be great if you could sing for everyone. You might even become famous. Naruto's comment made Mio give a soft laugh. I don't know. I feel like my true calling is in that, she said, pointing to the shirt of the boy who tilted his head. I've always liked sewing and designing clothes. It was the family business after all, it's in our veins. Letting out a yawn, she felt tired and sleepy. She stopped smiling and got up. You can sleep next to Dororo, I'll sleep in that room. Walking through the house, she was about to enter the other room but stopped in the doorway. If you have nowhere else to go, you can stay with us. With that offer and a final smile, the girl went to rest. In silence, Naruto remained seated, and after a few minutes, he finally heard the girl's soft breathing, indicating that she had fallen asleep. He quietly got up and approached Dororo. Hey! Tapping his forehead gently, he slowly woke up the boy. With a determined look, the shinobi stood up. Tell me about that tournament. Smiling, Dororo got up silently and signaled for the blonde to follow him as they headed out the window. It was almost midnight, and several people were entering a tunnel located in the heart of the bustling city. All those who entered descended through a rocky corridor that led to an earthen dome with a squared ring in the center. As more people arrived, they took their seats in the stands surrounding the fighting arena. Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen. I'm Wow, the owner of this place and the founder of this wonderful spectacle. But I'm also your host on this beautiful night to witness who will participate in my survival tournament. Were the words of a man who walked to the center of the ring. He was a short and stocky man in elegant attire worthy of a noble. He was bald, and his eyes were hidden behind dark sunglasses. He leaned on a cane with a spherical golden handle. Near the ring was an elderly man with a long white beard and similarly wild hair, wearing a worn gray robe. The old man was carrying a wooden box, which he placed at Wow's feet. And as always, the prize for anyone who survives the 4 rounds with my best fighters will win none other than 10,000 gold coins. With that shout, he earned the cheers of all the spectators. Thumping his cane on the ground, Wow made everyone fall silent. Now, who will be the first? This question created a tense silence in the dome, broken when some footsteps were heard. Me, Naruto's simple word emerged from the crowd, causing some to laugh and mock the kid who wanted to participate. You'd better go change your diapers, kid. Wow taunted, and this taunting and laughter from the spectators increased. Are you afraid I might win, egghead? Naruto taunted back, making the bald man with the cane furrow his brow. You asked for it. Step up and fight. Chapter 4, Winning for a Good Cause. Naruto quietly stepped onto the battlefield, where the old man worked for Wow, cleaning up the blood from the previous poor guy who tried to win in this survival tournament. With a sigh, The blonde ninja focused on his goal, winning. With a determined look, he surveyed the eager crowd, ready for the massacre to begin. Our new challenger is a fighter aiming to win the 10,000 gold pieces prize. If he defeats all opponents in his way, he takes it all. Shouted the magnate Wow from an elevated room above the audience and the battle arena, wearing an arrogant smile. He signaled to the old man cleaning the blood to activate a lever near the platform. Go for it, buddy. Dororo cheered along with the other spectators as a steel cage descended from the ceiling, trapping the young ninja inside. This made Naruto nervous, even though he recognized the strength of his new friend. He knew that not even the best fighters in all the years of this tournament had ever won. Place your bets against the house, yelled a guy among the gamblers, who started wagering their money that the boy wouldn't make it past the first round. Naruto took a deep breath but couldn't help his trembling hands. While this situation reminded him of the Chunin exams, it was different. How strong would his opponents be? What if he lost? Pushing these thoughts aside, he closed his eyes and concentrated as much as he could. But when he heard the gate opening, he opened his eyes again. His first opponent was a tall, slender guy with a gaunt appearance, long dark and spiky hair, and tattered, worn-out clothes. What stood out the most was a strange Oni mask that covered his entire face. Notably, he had metal claws attached to his wrists, somewhat rusty and stained with suspicious dried blood. The participant knows the rules. Entering the ring with weapons or using elements like water, fire, or earth is prohibited. Doing so will result in disqualification. The place's owner announced, and the spectators cheered when they heard it. Let the battle begin. Finally, the awaited fight began with the signal from the overweight man in a suit and a hat. Wow! Naruto had to duck in surprise as his opponent attacked him with remarkable speed. The rusty claws aimed to stab or strike at vital points, but the nimble ninja managed to dodge several attacks. When he had an opportunity, he grabbed one of the masked fighter's arms and, using his agility and short stature, leveraged it to throw him forcefully against the cage. Everyone heard the impact of the body hitting the steel bars, and the boy's first opponent fell and didn't get up. This unexpected outcome surprised many. Well done, Naruto. You're awesome. The awkward silence was interrupted by the child accompanying the pre-adolescent boy now in the ring. That wasn't so hard, Naruto said with a smile, giving a thumbs up to his young friend, which made Wow furrow his brow. Not bad, kid. But this is just the beginning. Next round. The cage opened again to let the ninja face his next opponent, a massive man wearing heavy armor and wielding a spiked mace. Without waiting, he let out a battle cry and charged at Naruto, lifting his weapon to strike. Naruto swiftly evaded the attack, jumping and delivering a horizontal kick to the fighter's head. However, the blow barely moved the giant, who grabbed the boy's leg and slammed him forcefully into the ground, causing him to gasp in pain. With a sore back, Naruto got back up and continued dodging the giant's strikes. New plan, Naruto thought quickly. He sprinted towards his opponent, ducked under the fighter's legs, and delivered a solid right hook to his groin. Ouch! The armored man groaned in pain, falling to his knees. Without wasting time, Naruto picked up the mace the fighter had dropped and, with a display of strength, swung it to deliver a devastating blow to the giant's chest. The massive man tried to get up but was sent flying onto his back, unconscious. Boo! The gamblers couldn't help but boo as another of their fighters lost, causing them to lose a significant amount of money. However, the non-gambling spectators cheered for the kid who displayed some impressive fighting instincts. Phew, Naruto sighed and dropped the mace, wearing a smile. Maybe it was a cheap shot, but hey, low blows weren't against the rules. He looked up at the stands and saw Wow wearing a displeased expression. Is that all you got, egghead? I expected more. He taunted. However, his smile faded as he noticed the sponsor of this place grinning with arrogance. Be careful what you wish for, kid. The sound of the gate opening was heard once more, and this time, two individuals entered. They were two women who looked strikingly similar, wearing outfits that resembled geisha attire but entirely black and without makeup to conceal their faces. Allow me to introduce you to the Kyujin twins, the best in the art of blade fighting and former geishas who served a great lord in Ba Sing Se. If you value your life, you should retreat. The fact that both completed each other's sentences only made Naruto more concerned. These two were not like anyone he had faced in this dump. I won't. There's someone who needs that money, and I won't lose, he said with determination, assuming an improvised battle stance. You're a noble child, but we need our payment too. One of the twins spoke and pulled a fan from her sleeve. With a cold expression, the warrior slightly bowed to the young ninja. But as a sign of respect, I'll tell you my name. I'm Yue, one of the women introduced herself. I'm Yui, the other girl introduced herself, and like her twin, she bowed respectfully to the blonde who felt somewhat uncomfortable due to their straight and respectful behavior. I'm Naruto. Once their introductions were done, the fight began, with the blonde leaping to avoid daggers thrown by one of the twins. Clinging to the ceiling of the cage, he watched as the twins used each other as springboards to launch themselves toward him, one after the other. Naruto narrowly dodged a fan that grazed his neck. Landing on the ground, he was attacked by Yue, who delivered a flurry of blows accompanied by constant cuts from the fan she wielded with her right hand. Naruto crouched to avoid another strike, which came close and tore his shirt. Growling, he took the opportunity to give her a solid elbow to the stomach. Ugh! Losing her breath, the twin backed away, but her sister, Yui, jumped on her and threw several blades that embedded in the boy's right arm, a result of his mistake in losing sight of one of his opponents. Yui, having successfully wounded her enemy, took out her fan and threw it like a spinning disc, narrowly missing the shinobi who had jumped aside to avoid the weapon. The fan became embedded in the steel bars. "You won't escape," whispered the brunette as she retrieved more blades from her sleeves and launched them at the elusive golden-haired boy, who ran and leapt in all directions, trying to escape the rain of weapons. Damn! 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 Naruto thought as he ran inside the cage from side to side, only to be stopped by a kick that landed on his face. Stunned, he fell on his back, only to see Yue, who had delivered the kick, standing above him. Rolling on the ground, Naruto avoided being stepped on, pushed himself up using his hands, and launched himself at the twin who was fighting hand to hand. Grabbing her clothing, he spun at high speed and threw her forcefully at her sister, who caught her. As the sisters prepared to counterattack, they were surprised when the blonde rushed at them like lightning, crashing into them, tackling them, and slamming them roughly against the steel bars. Yet even that didn't stop the determined twins, who got up to continue the fight. Both Yue and Yui attacked the golden-haired boy in synchronized fashion. He was fast, very fast for both former geishas, who saw all their strikes being dodged. However, the elder twin, Yue, crouched to kick the boy's legs out from under him, and the younger twin took the opportunity to immobilize him by wrapping her arm around his neck. "You're fast," the older sister said with a thin smile as she watched the boy held by her younger sister. "But without a fighting style or a plan, defeat awaits you." Saying that, she began to hit the boy's stomach with force, causing him to groan and squirm under the grip of the younger twin. "Come on, brother, don't give up." Dororo tried to encourage his friend, watching as Naruto was brutally beaten by Yue, who showed no mercy. With his blood trickling from his split lower lip, Naruto felt the air being squeezed out of him as one of the warriors choked him, while the other continued to strike him in the stomach. When the latter twin drew her fan with blades, the blonde had to act urgently. Opening his mouth, he bit the left hand of the sister holding him, making her scream in pain and release him. Without hesitation, he grabbed the girl's arm and flung her with force against her twin. Ah! With a scream of effort, Naruto took each sister by one of their arms and began spinning wildly. As seconds passed and he gained enough speed, he released the warrior twins, who crashed brutally against the steel bars, leaving both of them out of commission. Falling to his knees, the boy heard the excited cheers of the spectators, along with Dororo's joyful shouts for his victory. Naruto, feeling dizzy, removed the blades that had embedded in his right arm, letting his blood stain the ground. He grunted and tore part of his upper clothing sleeve to make a rudimentary bandage to stop the bleeding. "Naruto! Naruto! Naruto!" The cheers of the spectators grew louder, and even the surprised Uzumaki, who wasn't used to being supported, found it strange. Gripping the golden pommel of his staff, Wao struck the gong 3 times, and it happened. The door to the cage opened for the final encounter. Through the door came several people of different sizes, genders, and characteristics. Some carried weapons, while others seemed to specialize in hand-to-hand combat. Last match. Defeat all my champions, and the prize is yours, brat, the bald man with the staff said with malice as he looked at the boy surrounded by more than 20 of his best fighters. "Do any of you really have no qualms about fighting a child?" Naruto couldn't help but ask with a panicked grin. Facing so many opponents without his clones or at least a Rasengan was something entirely new for him. The fact that all of his opponents were grinning mockingly in response to his question was disheartening. "Kid, you're dead," declared one of the fighters, a tall, bearded man with great muscularity, carrying a hammer resting on his shoulder. "It's a shame. He looks so cute and adorable. I would have liked to have him as a pet," said a woman with white hair, fair skin, and bright blue eyes. She was dressed strangely for the occasion, in blue and white winter clothes, and had a mysterious bag on her back. With a lecherous smile, she ran her long nails across her lips, looking directly at the golden-haired child. "If he survives, he's mine." Those words sent a chill through Naruto's entire body. "Enough talking. I'm going to kill him," shouted a young man in typical Earth Kingdom attire, carrying a chain with a steel sphere on one end and a small scythe on the other. He was the first to attack, followed by several others. The first thing the shinobi did was run at his opponents and threw a punch that connected with the man who had just yelled. The blow was so powerful that it sent the guy flying, and he hit some of his comrades before collapsing, unconscious, onto the battle arena's floor. Without hesitation, the blonde crouched to avoid being cut by a sword. Ah! An angry swordsman in gray clothing rained down a flurry of strikes that the boy managed to evade by keeping his distance, but then a hammer struck his right side, nearly breaking his ribs. Naruto didn't have time to process it, as another attack came, this time from a massive overweight man who carried a wooden pillar on his shoulder. "Die, you trash!" Lowering the wooden pillar, the mercenary sought to crush his target, but the boy rolled on the ground to get up and made a jump, leaping over the giant fat man. He landed on his shoulders and grabbed his neck. "Let go of me." Furious, the big man tried to shake off the boy but found the child's strength strangely formidable. "Stay still." Several of the mercenaries had to get out of the way to avoid being crushed by their teammate, who, with fury, ran from side to side in an attempt to shake off the boy. Son of a bee. Some of the fighters were stepped on or crushed against the bars by their own comrade. Finally, after a few minutes, the overweight giant fell to his knees and then to the ground due to a lack of oxygen from the boy's strong grip around his neck. "Capture him." The swordsman from earlier leapt at Naruto to strike him, but he was counterattacked with the log that the blonde was now carrying. The blow broke the swordsman's back and sent him crashing to the ground, leaving him out of the fight. "How do you like this?" Naruto asked with a wild grin. He loaded the log onto his shoulder and attacked the nearest opponent, delivering blows left and right, reducing his enemies to just 6. As he was about to continue his assault, an unexpected block of earth emerged, hitting him in the center of his stomach and lifting him to strike against the cage's ceiling. "Ahg." He groaned in pain, feeling his insides being crushed. "Hey, he's an earthbending master. That's not fair." Dororo shouted, looking angrily at the young man with dark hair dressed as an Earth Kingdom soldier, in green clothing and a circular hat. With a piercing gaze, the earthbending master stomped his right foot, causing an earth pillar to shoot toward his target. "My house, my rules." With a hypocritical smile, Wow ignored the boy's complaint and continued to watch the battle from his private room. "My fighters don't have to follow the rule of not using weapons or bending elements. So let the battle continue." "You bastard!" Naruto muttered under his breath. He struck the earth pillar with all his strength, causing it to crack and break into thousands of pieces, just in time to avoid being hit by the pillar that grazed his head. Falling back onto the battle arena, he looked at a large puddle of water under his feet. "I've got you, sweetheart," came the whispered words of the smiling white-haired woman, who was just a few steps away from the shinobi. She smiled and moved her hands, causing a water whip to shoot out from her bag and split into 4 tendrils, each one grabbing one of his limbs. With a smile, she took a few steps and lowered her hands, forcing the boy to kneel before making the water freeze around him. "He's mine." Unexpectedly, the bearded man with a hammer rushed forward, pushing the waterbender aside. Raising his hammer, he swung it down, delivering a brutal blow to the boy's head, who couldn't escape from the ice in time. "Naruto!" Dororo cried out in shock, watching as the shinobi was sent flying after breaking free from the ice that had trapped him. His concern grew when he saw that, as he stood up, a significant amount of blood was flowing from his forehead. "You son of a bee!" He was defenseless. Dororo shouted angrily at the mercenary who had delivered the treacherous attack. As for the man with the hammer, he just smiled mockingly at the hate-filled gaze of the other boy. "If you've got something to say, come here, kid," he said, smiling at the child for a moment, and then smiling even more. "Hey, I know you. Your sister is the one who spreads her legs for coins. Did this kid plan to buy her for his own fun? It doesn't surprise me, coming from that WH," he taunted before a fist punched him in the mouth, sending him flying several meters to crash into the cage bars. The attacker was none other than Naruto, who, taking a deep breath, looked at his opponent. With half of his face covered in blood from the wound on his forehead, Naruto kept his fist raised, staring directly at the bastard who fell to his knees, coughing up blood. "Arg. Blck." The man tried to speak, but the accumulated blood and over 10 missing or broken teeth made it impossible for him to speak. Nevertheless, he rose with anger, grabbed his hammer, and lunged at the shinobi. However, he fell when a thin layer of ice formed beneath his feet. Smiling malevolently, the waterbender made the ice disappear, causing the idiot to fall in front of the golden-haired boy. "You," Naruto said angrily. He picked up the hammer lying nearby and raised it, with a red glint in his eyes that only the bearded man could see. Approaching him, he held the hammer high and gave a final look to his victim. "You'll never touch her again." He lowered the hammer and struck the man right in the groin. A cracking sound could be heard, and many had to avert their eyes, unable to bear the sight. With a blank stare, the former hammer wielder had blood trickling from his crotch. He was alive, but the injuries he had just received didn't promise him a good life. Naruto dropped the hammer to focus on the 6 remaining people. The boy's dark gaze was fixed on them. Some felt a chilling shiver, and a few even thought they saw a ghostly silhouette of a 9-tailed demon fox behind him. He now had blue eyes with slit pupils. "Get me out of here." 4 of them, who were just mercenaries, dropped their weapons and rushed to the cage door in desperation. The old man lazily opened the cage, allowing the fighters to escape. "Well, that leaves only us, darling," the waterbending master smiled and moved her hands slowly and gracefully, causing a large amount of water to come from different directions. This water came from the alcoholic drinks of the spectators or the pipes on the ceiling. "Since I left the northern tribe, I haven't had a good battle. I hope you won't disappoint me." The white-haired woman with a malicious gleam in her eyes made the water form a circle around her. As for the earthbending master, he lowered his hands to strike the ground, and the earth rose from the ground to envelop his fists. Silently, the black-haired man from the Earth Kingdom flexed his legs, making the ground tremble, causing several earth pillars to rise and head straight for Naruto. The latter didn't stand still and dodged every block of earth thrown at him, retreating to a corner of the cage, looking at the 2 elemental masters before him. His bleeding forehead wouldn't stop, and it was causing his right eye to become cloudy. Swallowing hard, he knew this would be even more challenging than his battle against Azula. If he used clones or a Rasengan, he would break the supposed rules of this place and wouldn't get paid. So, this is how Guy Sensei and Rock Lee felt when relying solely on their fists? Those bushy brows deserved the utmost respect. "Naruto." He snapped out of his thoughts at Dororo's voice, lowering his gaze. He found him near the cage. "I made a mistake bringing you here. If you continue, they'll kill you. And Mio will kill me," he whispered, shivering at the last thing he said. "She will." With a heavy sigh, Uzumaki Naruto tore a strip of fabric from the shirt sleeve that his little friend's older sister had made. He tied the brown cloth around his forehead, letting it turn red from the blood. "Then give up, brother. You're already lost. Just surrender. No one will think badly of you." The boy's shouts even reached the spectators who were also supporting the golden-haired fighter. "I won't, Dororo, because I never give up. That's my ninja way." "Well, that will be the end of your path, idiot." Frustrated, the boy tugged at his hair, but he fell silent when he saw Naruto raise his thumb with a big smile on his face. "Have faith in me, kid. I'll show everyone what Uzumaki Naruto is capable of." With that shout, the shinobi pointed at the 2 elemental masters in front of him. "Are you done?" The white-haired woman's mocking question followed. "You're lucky that Wu is a mute who respects you for winning the previous fights," she said calmly, pointing at the earthbending master who remained stoic but nodded in agreement with the waterbending master. "And I didn't attack you. Because I find it amusing that you think you can win." Saying that, she sent the water whips towards the shinobi, who had to run from side to side, avoiding the whips that, when hitting the ground, created small craters or bent the steel bars. As for Wu, he made the ground under him turn into loose soil, which he used to move around the platform at high speed. It was no problem for him to reach Naruto and attempt to land a punch with his right hand covered in rocks. However, he failed when the pre-adolescent dropped to the ground. Supporting his hands on the ground, the blonde kicked the earthbending master, but a water wall prevented him from connecting the blow. "Darn it." Cursing, he watched as a water whip caught his ankle and, like a ragdoll, it repeatedly struck him against the ground and the bars, causing his limbs to be pulled apart slowly. "How long will you hold out?" the white-haired woman asked with a dangerous smile, not letting up on her constant arm movements and making several whips capture each of the pre-adolescent's limbs, slowly pulling them apart. "Scream for me, little one," she said, clenching her fists, increasing the pressure on the water tentacles even more. "You rot." Using all his strength, Naruto tried to break free from his restraints, but all he managed to do was get a wall of earth to crush him against the cage bars. After the devastating blow, the wall slowly crumbled, letting the blonde fall heavily to the ground. "It's over." Wow grinned broadly, looking at the motionless boy on the ground. It seemed his good luck would continue for a long time. However, he wanted to make sure that the boy wouldn't leave this place, at least not alive. Woo, finish it. But he needed to ensure that the boy wouldn't leave this place, at least not alive. Hey, that wasn't part of the deal. Dororo's protests and several others were ignored. They could only watch as the earthbending master approached the fallen boy at a slow pace. As for the waterbending master, she furrowed her brow, crossing her arms, while the water around her slowly moved in the direction of the Earth Kingdom guy. She wouldn't let them waste a possible trophy like this boy. Wu, following his boss's orders, lifted a large rock that levitated above his right hand. Seeing the fallen boy seemingly wanting to wake up, he wouldn't let him. Lowering the rock, he only crushed the ground, as unexpectedly, the boy rolled on the ground and got up just a few steps away from him. Take this. Using his right hand, Uzumaki Naruto landed a powerful blow to Wu's abdomen, making him take a few steps back. You should always exploit your enemy's weaknesses. If they focus on long or medium range attacks, it means their taijutsu is weak or non-existent. Isn't that curious? Kakashi-sensei's voice resonated in Naruto's mind, and with a smile, he grabbed the Earth Kingdom Master's clothing to prevent him from getting some distance. He headbutted Wu, who was trying to retreat or at least touch the ground but couldn't, as the boy lifted him off the ground. With the Earthbending Master on his shoulders, Naruto ran in the direction of the surprised Waterbending Master, who didn't have time to react. She was tackled and thrown to the ground. As for Wu, he was painfully slammed against the cage and, upon falling, was grabbed by his armor and received a final blow to the face that knocked him out. Ah. Breathing heavily, the pre-adolescent let the Earthbending Master fall, only to fall to his knees when he received a harsh lash that cut his back. Turning, he saw the rain of blows from the Waterbending Master, who gathered as much water as she could to form dozens of whips that went after the elusive boy. You can't escape forever. She taunted in anger while forming a large wave that covered a large part of the fighting arena. It struck with force at the shinobi, who planted his feet on the ground. To the white-haired woman's disbelief, he resisted the wave's impact. How, confused, she saw that he didn't even move. Smiling, the blonde took a deep breath. No one would notice he was using chakra to adhere to the ground. My turn, old witch. He ran towards the Waterbending Master, constantly dodging the water whips and ice shards that came his way. I'm only 22, you brat. She gritted her teeth and formed long ice spears that flew towards her opponent, who continued to run from side to side. With her anger rising, she created a whirlwind around her with dozens of ice stakes waiting to be launched. But there was a hitch. Arg! The boy's wet jacket was thrown in her face, and when she removed it, she saw that the brat had disappeared. Alert, she searched in all directions, up, down, left, right. Opening her eyes in surprise, she turned her head to see the boy behind her, kneeling. He had his hands together, with some fingers raised, and most notably, a wicked smile. Surprise! With that shout, Naruto's fingers ended up at the Waterbending Master's rear end, making her scream sharply and jump away from the boy. You little brat. I'm going to kill you. The embarrassed white-haired woman had a strong blush on her cheeks and her legs were trembling due to the lingering pain from that embarrassing attack. Ha ha ha. I don't believe it. Naruto jumped up, kicking the cage bars on the ceiling, where dozens of ice spears fell on the Waterbending Master. She moved her hands, turning the ice that was about to fall on her into water, only to lose sight of the brat once again. What? Feeling a weight on her back, the woman from the northern tribe saw the smiling boy who knocked her down to the ground. Using his jacket, he tied her hands and legs behind her back. You little brat. I'll catch you, and... Her mouth was covered by a piece of cloth the shinobi pulled from his pocket, silencing the furious Waterbending Master writhing in her restraints. Standing up, Naruto saw that he was the only one left in the battle arena, wearing only his torn orange pants from his battle against Azula. Smiling, he raised his right fist, earning cheers from the audience. Did he win? Dororo asked incredulously, feeling his eyes well up with tears and a lump in his throat. He watched the smiling blonde being cheered on by the crowd. You won, brother. When the cage was lifted, the dark-haired boy didn't hesitate to climb into the ring and run to hug Naruto's waist. You won, brother. You won. Did you doubt me? Naruto asked, lifting the boy to put him on his shoulder. Yes, several times, but look at you, you won. Unable to contain it, the boy cried tears of joy while hugging Naruto's head, who smiled more calmly. While they celebrated, they heard footsteps, which were from a serious while carrying a wooden box. He dropped the box and his staff, then started clapping slowly and without enthusiasm. I started this tournament 20 years ago, and no one had won until now. He stopped clapping, crouched to open the box, revealing thousands of gold coins. Dororo's eyes lit up at the sight. And it will remain that way. He closed the box and stepped on it, while several armed mercenaries under his command looked at the shinobi with malicious intent. But, he won, wasn't that part of the deal? The confused and angry child who got off Naruto's shoulder asked. Yes, but your fighter cheated. That strength and speed aren't human. How can I be sure this kid didn't use some unknown ability? Wow asked with an arrogant smile, leaning on his staff. His words earned the hatred of the spectators, who started booing, but were ignored by the bald man, who raised his hand, making the mercenaries raise their weapons. That's garbage. You're a son of a bitch. Dororo was about to attack the egghead man, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. Looking behind him, he saw Naruto shaking his head. Listen, egghead. I won't leave without my prize. Placing Dororo behind him, Naruto took a step forward, looking at the smirking noble with his mercenaries still behind him. Even if you can fight, you're finished and tired, while the rest of my fighters aren't. Leave, kid, or we'll have to carry you out in a wooden box. Wow said. With a sigh of annoyance, he was about to pick up his box of gold, but the boy's foot got in the way. With a footstep of irritation, the bald man stood up. Fine, if that's what you want, kill him, eh? Confused, he saw some kind of misshapen sphere forming in the boy's right hand. Before he could ask anything, that thing took the shape of a sphere with a strong wind swirling around it. Rasengan. A great gust of wind originated from nowhere when that strange attack hit Wow's stomach. He, along with the mercenaries, was sent flying by the wind and shockwave, making them fall or crash into the walls of the underground arena. Everyone was in disbelief over such a display of power, some more than others. An airbender? That's impossible. Unless. On the ground, the waterbending master saw the boy grabbing the box of gold in one arm and the other boy with his free arm, running at high speed out of the place. The avatar. She moved her fingers, making a stream of water cut through the jacket and set her free. Without hesitation, she ran towards the exit, only to find no one there. Sister. Near the gate were both the geisha twins and the mute earthbending master. The latter had just woken up. It's him, the younger twin said, and they exchanged glances. Without saying a word, they left quietly, discreetly followed by the earthbending master. How could they do this? Just leave after I asked them not to? These were Mio's thoughts as she walked back and forth in her home with her arms crossed. Just minutes ago. She woke up feeling thirsty, only to find that neither Dororo nor Naruto were in the house. Stopping, she heard the door being opened. Can you tell me where you two were? Mio yelled. The first one to enter was Dororo, who didn't pay attention to his sister's words and entered the house, hugging her waist tightly, worrying the brunette, who saw the little one crying. What happened? She knelt down, taking the boy's shoulders. She saw that he was crying, but with a big smile on his face. Before she could ask anything, she heard the door being opened again. Out of breath, she saw the battered state of that sweet golden-haired boy. He had a bleeding forehead, several bruises on his face, and the shirt she had given him was absent, revealing several purple and black bruises on his torso. But none of that seemed to matter to the pre-adolescent, as he had a bright smile on his face. Mio-chan. The battered shinobi bent down to pick up a box from outside the house. Walking until he was in front of the red kimono-clad brunette, he dropped the box and opened it. I know I shouldn't have risked myself. But you let me stay in your home and gave me food, even if it meant you didn't eat. I know it's stupid, but I want to give you this, because of what you did for me. No one else would have done it. Opening the box revealed thousands of gold coins, and he stepped back a few steps. Please take it. A dead silence fell over the house, lasting a few seconds until it was broken by Mio. With a trembling in her shoulders and tears welling up in her eyes, she bit her lower lip to stifle the crying. This worried Naruto, who saw the red kimono-clad brunette burst into tears. Naruto. With a broken voice, the girl took a step forward to reach the shinobi. He almost stumbled when the adolescent wrapped her arms around his waist. Paralyzed, Naruto felt her tears falling onto his hair, and he put his forehead against her neck, letting her cry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. She kept thanking him over and over, hugging him to her chest as tightly as possible. She was squeezing him as much as she could. The feeling of warmth and comfort that he'd never experienced before washed over him. Closing his eyes, he feared opening them, thinking it was all a dream. Tightening his arms around the brunette, Naruto felt a comforting warmth that made him forget all his wounds. Lowering his gaze, He found that Dororo was hugging his waist, too, joining the embrace. This feeling? He smiled faintly, hugging the adolescent even more. It feels good. With tears on the edge of his eyes, he could only savor this brief moment. The Great Nine Tails was watching all the recent events as Jinchuriki had been through. Opening his red eyes in the middle of the darkness, he snorted. Such sentimentality from the brat. It seemed that instead of keeping a low profile, he was acting like a fool, going from one place to another to help all the unfortunate people he came across. Not bad. Kid, not bad. He closed his eyes again, letting the one who imprisoned him enjoy this brief moment of happiness. But you'll learn the hard way that not everything has a happy ending. With these thoughts, he went back to his deep sleep.